For over 1,000 generations, the Jedi Knights were the guardians of peace and justice in the Old Republic, before the Dark Time.
This movie's ass. Things can be spontaneous, and throughout media we have seen some crazy stuff. Right now Squid Game is huge on Netflix, and Star Wars now has an anime. What? Star Wars has been through a lot, the good, the bad, and the really ugly. The recent trilogy was bad, maybe because the new CEO was a Hi sisters. Anyways, the sequels are just they had lack of direction, they had no clue what they were doing, and they sucked at it. Watching The Rise of Skywalker was like seeing a Nick Avocado weight gain montage. Star Wars was, and still is, a staple within the cinematic industry. The 1960s brought something different than any previous decade: space. Oh, and communism. Star Trek brought a new take on sci-fi adventure, and then in the 70s, George Lucas pitched the movie that would change everything. Alright George, let's hear the pitch.
Okay, so I had a dream where I, Lucas Starkiller, explored a galaxy far.
George, we need an original character, not you, you small little fart gnome.
What? Fuck y'all. Name him Luke Skywalker or whatever. Fucking idiots.
Skywalker. Alright, give this man $11 million and we got ourselves a franchise. Anime and Star Wars, like many other people have said, goes together like white college girls and Starbucks. Mainly because big ol' George Lucas took inspiration from Kurosawa's The Hidden Fortress, and lightsaber combat takes from the ancient style of kendo. Now Disney, coming in with the big bucks, say, hey, make me anime. Star Wars Visions came out of nowhere, and I'm not disappointed at all. 9 episodes were released in this anthology, each with their own studios. Tatooine Rhapsody showed a galaxy that wasn't just lightsabers and saving the damsel in distress. A band travels across the stars playing music with a song that's actually pretty good. There are other stories in this anthology like T0B1, The Elder, and Akiri. However, these aren't necessarily bad, they're just not the greatest. The Duel has a very distinct style. We are presented with a dark grainy tone. The Empire arrives, and just like any standoff, our wanderer approaches the enemy. The Sith in this episode are sporadic, irrational, and cocky, and her lightsaber is nothing short of crazy. The fight sequence in this episode keeps you glued to the screen, and I'll be saying this a lot, but it's done better than any of the sequels. The episode ends with a twist that although the Ronin fights for good, he uses a red lightsaber, and as he leaves, he hands a red kyber crystal to one of the villagers, saying it wards off evil, as the Ronin goes off into the unknown once again.
So when it comes to the episode The Twins in Star Wars Visions, I was genuinely impressed by the animation, the characters, and overall the kind of small lore implications that Studio Trigger implemented. Even though I'm known as the JoJo guy in the Deviants and Dungeon Crawler Discord, I'm still a pretty massive Star Wars fan myself. And seeing concepts like dark side magic and the implications that it can actually give people Force-like powers is super cool, seeing that we've only ever seen that in books and Legends continuity. And seeing an evil take on the twins concept, that being of course being a callback to Luke and Leia, is cool as a fan to see. The overall art style and animation that Studio Trigger did in Kill la Kill translates over to the twins episode perfectly. It's almost really fun and enjoyable to see a callback to Kill la Kill. From the overall goofy and really cool animation and, you know, anime tropes that Studio Trigger made being put into a Star Wars anime is just, you know, overall cool as an anime fan and a Star Wars fan. You can genuinely tell that Studio Trigger really tried their hardest when making this short episode, which I genuinely appreciate, so thanks.
Lop Ocho is a very unique story. A lone kid named Lop scavenges for food but is then recognized by the boss of the city. And seeing the situation Lop is in, Ocho takes her in. Immediately, this story had more emotion than most of these other short stories. Lop is the little sister, while Ocho was the one that took her in and wanted a friend. In the beginning, it doesn't paint the Empire as a completely destructive force, which is why Ocho decided to join. But in doing so, she betrayed her family. Lop now gains the sacred lightsaber and confronts Ocho, but the dark side had consumed her, and there was no saving her. You could see the inspiration from a mile away. It reminded me of Anakin vs. Obi-Wan, or Luke trying to bring his father back in Return of the Jedi. Both amazing fight scenes, and in this one, it's amazing. And what the greatest part of this story is, it doesn't really end. It leaves on a cliffhanger, which makes me hope that this beautiful story gets a continuation.
Now, when it comes to the new anthology series of Star Wars Visions, there are so many amazing stories being told throughout each episode, but the one that really resonated with me across the board is that of the Ninth Jedi. Produced by Production IG, the studio responsible for works such as Psycho-Pass, the original Fooly Cooley series, Ghost in the Shell, and many more. In this episode, we're introduced to a time in which war is on the rise in the galaxy, and Jedi and lightsabers are both scarce and almost a thing of legend. Aside from the beautiful animation throughout this episode, as well as the immaculate pacing, my favorite aspect of the episode is the emphasis on lightsabers and their deeper meaning and connection to their wielders. Now, a lot of diehard Star Wars fans would say that there's a little bit of lore incongruity here in the episode, but I really do enjoy the fact that we get to see what a lightsaber actually looks like colorless and how it shows the connection to the Force depending on the will of the person wielding it, how that color transposes into their lightsaber. I've always thought that lightsabers are kind of the coolest part of Star Wars. You know, it's literally a light sword, which is honestly a really cool weapon. But it's great to see that this lore is expanded upon in a time where it's said that they don't even have these and that they are scarce and almost, like I said before, of legend. It's just really cool to see the heavy emphasis of the lightsaber lore in this world.
There was always something fascinating about the Force. With the original trilogy, it was described to be everywhere, a cosmic energy of the galaxy, an unknown source that resided in everyone. The prequels tried to explain this better, saying it was midichlorians that existed within you. But this never really satisfied me. I had always watched Star Wars for the politics, the lightsaber battles, and the lore, but somehow I never really cared about the Force itself. Now that sounds a little vague. I cared about Force techniques and the powers it had, but it only pertained to the wielder, not the Force. The Village Bride is my favorite episode in this entire anthology series. It made the Force seem alive, which is something completely new. It was something Star Wars had never done before, and it did it better than anything before it. A Sentinel Jedi is on the run, and she takes refuge in a village that has a close cultural connection to the Force, and the Force here is stronger than you can imagine. It moves mountains, flows with the wind, and is binded to nature. The Force in the Village Bride has given such a nuance to it, and it's beautiful. I believe that if this episode got its own series or a set of films, it could possibly change Star Wars forever. There's a certain feeling you get when watching things that give pure mysticism. Made in Abyss, Lord of the Rings, Edge of Tomorrow, and many others give an atmosphere like no other. They don't give out a feeling like other media because they incite curiosity and wonder, and that is Star Wars. Not politics, not agenda setting, but showing a real world with adventure and a scope that is full of greatness, an unmatched story in a galaxy far, far away. That is Star Wars, and that is Star Wars Visions.